Welcome to Midway Minute, everybody. I'm Scott Koral. He is Kevin Kaduk. And it's another quarterback carousel time for the Bears. We've done a video about this before. Kevin, I guess maybe before we start, any thoughts?
Yeah, so we did this about 2 weeks ago. We talked about all the Bears quarterback possibilities. It turns out people really like talking about the future Bears quarterback. We don't know who it will be. At that point, we thought maybe it could be Matt Stafford. Maybe it could be Jared Goff. We talked about those two. We talked about Carson Wentz. And then for the last 10 days, we're completely, dissecting that move. Didn't happen. He lands with the Colts. So now what for the Chicago Bears? I have no idea.
That's the best question. Now what?
Yeah.
Mitch Trubisky, I think you have to start with Mitch Trubisky not there, but Nick Foles is there.
Right.
Should we start there? Is Nick Foles going to be the starting quarterback of the Chicago Bears in 2021 week one?
I guess in 2020, he was the starting quarterback, in case of emergency, break glass quarterback, right? That's what he was. And it's probably what he'll be for 2021. Now, I don't want to see that. You don't want to see that. And I don't think that Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy, whose future livelihoods depend on it, really want to see it. I mean, they don't.
And I don't think George McCaskey wants to see it either. I think I think they've made an ultimatum. Look, Ryan, you've swung and missed not just once, but twice on a quarterback. Now it's time for you to get this right, because if you can't get it right, you got to go.
But here's the thing, Scott, and we've talked about this in Midway Minute, which is our newsletter. People should go and sign up for it for daily updates on the Chicago Bears quarterback. Subscribe.midwayminute.win. I've been saying, look, they're going to have to take a swing at some point. There is going to be a risk involved. The perfect quarterback does not exist out there right now. You don't have the number one pick for Trevor Lawrence. And even if you did, that's not a day one solution. He's not going to turn you directly into a Super Bowl quarterback. So yeah, Carson Wentz did come with a lot of problems, and I wasn't really high on them overpaying for him. If it did come to that, they didn't. Apparently, they didn't even make an offer. But at some point, you're going to have to take a risk on a Sam Darnold or Gardner Minshew. Now, when you talked about Mitch Trubisky, one of the storylines that did erupt in the last 2 weeks was Matt Nagy has got no interest in a reunion, and Trubisky himself doesn't have any interest in a reunion. So we're looking at Foles, and then Pace has got to come up with something.
And then now what? So the question I think that is going to come up is, are the Bears willing to strike now while the iron's hot? Yeah. And the options there are Deshaun Watson, Gardner Minshew, as you mentioned, Sam Darnold, people in those molds. Or are you willing to wait to try and find out, be patient, and see what the Dallas Cowboys do with somebody like Dak Prescott? He can be tagged again, and his tag number is going to be significant. It's going to be in the about 37, 38 million, somewhere in that range. But the Cowboys may not have a way to afford that. So are you willing to strike while the iron's hot, or are you willing to be patient? Which one would you favor?
Well, I think last year, had they been patient, they might have ended up with Cam Newton, which at the time, okay, well, maybe we'll try with Cam Newton. That would have turned out to probably be an even bigger mistake than signing Nick Foles, he didn't do all that well in New England. I don't know. When we did that first quarterback carousel video, we went down 15 guys, and I said, who do you want? You said Gardner Minshew, and I said, I'm willing to take a swing at Sam Darnold. So if you go and get Sam Darnold from the Jets for a fifth-round pick or lower, which I really think is what he's worth. The Jets might think that he's worth more.
Oh, a lot more.
You think he's worth more than a fifth-round pick? Why? Why would he be worth more than a fifth-round pick? What has he shown you in the first 3 years that is worth more than that?
I'm just telling you what Joe Douglas is asking. He wants at least a first, at least. So getting him for a fifth ain't gonna happen.
We saw what Howie Roseman wanted for Carson Wentz, and all the trial balloons that they floated out through the media. Oh, we want two first rounders. We want a first rounder and Nick Foles and Tariq Cohen. Didn't come anywhere close to that. The Colts gave up a third rounder and a conditional second. Yeah.
The Bears gave up this.
The Jets are kind of in a position right now the Jaguars are, right? So if the Jets go out and they do want a quarterback, I assume they do, unless they really kind of want to trade down, which, if I was a Jets fan, I wouldn't be opposed to either. But Sam Darnold is not the quarterback of their future. And if they do go out and draft one of the top QBs who isn't Trevor Lawrence, then what are you going to do with Sam Darnold? How are you possibly going to ask for a second or third rounder for him? I don't think it happens. And the Bears don't have the fourth rounder this year. So here, take our fifth.
Darnold has shown flashes.
Sure.
His biggest issue is, and this is since he was at USC, because he didn't really have him when he was at Modern Day High School in Southern California. But when he was at USC, he had freshman tackles and he had happy feet. It was sad to see. But when he was able to put some things together, he had what, in my estimation, Favre-like qualities. I'm not saying he's Brett Favre or anything like that. I'm just saying he was a gunslinger. He took chances and wasn't afraid. And that's something that Bears quarterbacks have always been, is afraid. Well, I shouldn't say that, because Jay Cutler wasn't afraid because he didn't care. So Darnold is a guy that I think if you can get him to calm his feet down, he could end up being okay. Gardner Minshew, we've discussed ad nauseum. I think Gardner Minshew would be a decent 1 or 2 year bridge if you need to. He's a guy
that's
who
what
can
I
throw
like about
downfield.
Darnold. This is what I like about Darnold, Scott, is that you are looking at a front office that is presumably lame duck status, and it's on them to really prove that they need to stick around. So you're looking at a guy like Sam Darnold, who was the number 3 pick 3 years ago, who has the potential, who has the pedigree. All right, Matt Nagy, here you go. Here is your test, and if you can get it for an affordable a price, then you take it. And if they fail, then so be it. You move on. You bring in the new administration. You bring in the new quarterback. That's what 2021 is going to be.
Well, it could be a very scary proposition for the Bears if they swing and miss every single time. I mean, granted, that would be like the Cubs last year.
What do you mean? They do swing and miss every single time, Scott.
But I'm saying, every chance that they've gotten to go get a quarterback, they've swung and missed. That's not a good track record for Ryan Pace.
Yeah.
With other draft picks, he's been okay, except for the year that he picked Trubisky and Tariq Cohen. That really was about it. But other than that, Pace hasn't done well. I think he's done okay with other things. The
interesting thing about Carson Wentz signing with the Colts, I think Field Yates tweeted this, was that every first-round quarterback from 2009 to 2016 is no longer with their original team. And that includes a lot of number 1 picks, a lot of number 2 picks, in some weird circumstances and some just, flat out busts. But it's hard to find a franchise quarterback. I mean, the Broncos have been doing it for almost a decade now since Manning left. The Lions had Matt Stafford, couldn't do anything with him. I guess that's maybe more on the Lions, but it's hard. And I understand it's like the Bears have half of a century, 60, 70 years of this going on, so it's a little crazier. But I mean, even a team like the Eagles, who thought they had a franchise quarterback in Carson Wentz, and he was playing at MVP level, they got to a Super Bowl, won it with Nick Foles, and it's like, okay, well, Wentz is going to come back and carry us into this next decade. Within 4 years, he's gone.
And that was, I think, a big thing for the Bears, probably why they never did make that offer, because Nagy's still tight with Doug Peterson. I'm sure they had a conversation. So what was your relationship like? What relationship are you talking about? We hadn't talked for, the last couple months of the season.
That's crazy.
So, at that point, well, if you guys weren't talking, should we go for it? Probably not.
Do you think that our viewers realize that we don't talk off camera? It's like, you just send me the Zoom link, I show up, and as soon as we're done, it's click. But we play well on camera, right?
Yeah, but I mean, we do talk off camera.
We do.
Somewhat.
The Carson Wentz, that was just a bad fit from the beginning. He's obviously it wasn't a toxic situation in Philadelphia, and Chicago as a football town There's very similar qualities. And I just, he would have been walking into a situation where people would have already had their minds made up against him. And any really Bears quarterback does walk into that. But I think this would have been even more problematic. And he's headed to Indianapolis, so I think is a little bit more Super Bowl ready. He's headed with his old coach, Frank Reich. I think that's just a great situation. We don't really know kind of what went on beyond the scenes. Carson Wentz, like, look, I don't want to go to Chicago. I think that was floated. If he didn't want to come here, why would the Bears give up that draft capital to bring him in?
No, that's when I would have, all right, you want to trade him to us? All right, here's a fifth. Here's a fifth. Go, good luck. Enjoy.
Yeah. I mean, I did see that what the Colts gave up, and I thought, okay, well, I would have been okay with that with the Bears with the conditional second round pick, because if he's showing up and playing, then okay, like I'm fine with that. But let the Colts have him, and I think the Bears just kind of have to go forward.
But what happens if? And I'm just floating this as just a hypothetical. If the 2021 Wentz is close to the same as the 2020 Wentz, the Colts just gave up a first rounder for absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a disaster. And
well,
now you just gave.
How does that work though? So it's a conditional first round pick if he takes 75% or more snaps. I mean, are they going to be sitting there and
if Wentz takes 75% or more snaps during the 2021 season, then it becomes a first rounder. It could be a first rounder.
If they come out and tank, is it really hard to think that the Colts are going to be like, oh man, this guy's hamstring is hurt. Can't throw him out there. I better put this guy in concussion protocol.
Maybe. I mean, that's a possibility. If the Colts make the playoffs and he plays 70% of the snaps, it also becomes a first 70%, rounder.
Yeah, and at that point they're probably fine with it. I mean, I like that Colts team. Obviously, they have a lot of pieces there. So. Are you let's talk about Deshaun Watson a little bit. And again, if you want to sign up for the Midway Minute newsletter, it's great. It's free. It's every weekday morning. Subscribe.midwayminute.win. But let's talk about Deshaun Watson. I have not really opened my heart to that possibility. I don't think there's any way of it happening. I'm not hopeful. I'm not optimistic. I don't even want to think about it. Are you the same way, or are you different?
I still think there's that possibility because there are people in Deshaun Watson's ear that are saying the Bears aren't a bad situation. Mm-hmm. And the Rams have so far made it work with no first round picks for the last 7-8 years. Yeah. So at some point, could the Bears make this work if they can get Deshaun Watson? Probably. Yeah. Would you be able to afford Deshaun Watson first year? Yes. Second year, maybe not. And that would mean that either a lot of people would have to restructure their contracts or you'd have to trade some people on defense. Because I believe for the 2021 season, the Bears have almost 70 million for the offense. Mm-hmm. And they're paying 122 million to the defense. That's a lot of cash.
That's the other side of this offseason, Scott, is that Ryan Pace, in addition to solving that quarterback situation, he's got to solve the Allen Robinson situation, whether or not he franchise tags him or transition tags him. Then you got to decide who to cut. And by the time this thing rolls out, they might make some cuts this weekend. We're taping this on Friday the 19th. Akeem Hicks, is probably up for a trade. If they trade him, it's only $1.5 million cap hit, and they save $10.5 million. I think Kyle Fuller, well, I think we would hate to see him go. I think there's a chance that he could go just because of the cap savings it would represent. Jimmy Graham, I think, was a kind of a nice luxury to have last year for the touchdowns that he caught. I mean, he didn't do a lot, in between the 20s, but we appreciated his effort in the end zone. He's going to go for $7 million. I think Javon Wims, Buster Screen, these are all guys that are really ripe to kind of be sent on their way. And, you do have to replace them.
Sure. The two guys that are likely to go, the likeliest, will probably be Bobby Massey. And I have no problem with Bobby Massey. I know he was hurt a lot last year. He's played fairly well for the Bears. So I would be sad to see him go. But him and Buster Screen, that would save you almost about, I believe, $16 million.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
I think that makes sense. And I think with the offensive line, you're in a period of transition, and you're building in different things. And Massey, if he's healthy, can be an asset, but he hasn't been able to stay on the field. And the same thing with Akeem Hicks. I mean, I think we love Akeem Hicks. I think he's a great Bear. We've all loved having him here, but he can't stay on the field, and you can save that money and then maybe hopefully get a 5th or 6th round pick from a contender. I think it's worth it.
yeah, I'm just not sure they want to take that chance to get rid of Hicks, because if you get rid of Hicks, Mack becomes extremely ineffective.
Yeah, but
so that's tough.
You have Eddie Goldman coming back, and if Bilal Nichols takes the jump, I mean, these are just the situations that you run into when you do commit so much money to that defense. You're going to have to make tough decisions.
Yeah, but the toughest decision that they have to make is who's going to throw the ball to the receivers and hand the ball off to the running backs. It always comes
back to the quarterback, Scott. Why do you got to remind me?
Because the Bears, Sid Luckman was the last probably really good one that was there for more than 3 years injury free. So you need
matter
somebody.
No matter what happens with the quarterback position, do they 100% have to draft a quarterback in the draft?
I think they should. I mean, right now, you are down to Nick Foles. That's it. You if you trust that, then don't draft a quarterback. Just go with what you got. But I think you need to go for one in free agency and draft one. And look, if you have Nick Foles and you get a decent free agent quarterback, you probably don't have to draft one in the first 3 rounds. You might have to, maybe a 5th or a 6th. Kellen Mond from Texas A&M, sure.
Yeah,
why not?
I mean, but I would rather take a swing at some of those mid-round guys, because that's probably. I mean, how many Tom Brady's are there? None. By the way, Tom Brady won his 7th Super Bowl since we last talked. Did you hear about that?
Yeah. I mean, good for Giselle.
All right. I think we should wrap it here, Scott. What do you think?
Good enough for me.
Yeah, this is good. Hey, for all your Bears offseason news, make sure you follow Midway Minute here on YouTube. Smash that subscribe button. Scott and I always have great conversations, and we appreciate you showing a lot of love to not only our Bears content, but we did some cool stuff with the Chicago Sky and Candace Parker. We're going to be talking about the baseball seasons coming up, soccer seasons coming up, and anything Chicago sports we talk about here. So let us know what you want to see, and make sure you subscribe to that newsletter. Subscribe.midwayminute.win. We will see you next time.